Our third speaker this morning is Kirk Hanlon, and Kirk is the Assistant Chief of the Natural Resource Conservation Service. Secretary Tom Vilsack appointed Kirk Hanlon as Assistant Chief in July of 2013, and as Assistant Chief, he is central to the agency's leadership team, providing oversight and guidance for implementation of NRCS programs which help protect the environment, preserve our natural resources, and improve agricultural sustainability through voluntary private lands conservation. One aspect of his bio I found really interesting. Kirk is a native Illinoisan, and he grew up on the banks of the Mississippi River in a family with generations of both farmers and towboat captains, giving him an appreciation for protecting the land and river for future generations. To pay for college, he spent summers and winter breaks working on barges and towboats traveling from Minneapolis to New Orleans, earning an AA from Southeast Iowa Community College and a bachelor's administration in political science at Western Illinois University. Kirk.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And just to touch on that, as he said, I grew up on the banks of the Mississippi River. I still have a house right where Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri come together in Nauvoo, Illinois. And my house sits up on a bluff overlooking the river. My brother's house, I can look directly across the Mississippi, and his is 3 feet above the level of the Mississippi River. But because it's above the dam in Keokuk, Iowa, the water never fluctuates more than about 2 feet where he is, so he's actually very lucky. But as he said, when you grow up with my grandfather was a towboat captain, my father was a towboat captain, my brother is a towboat captain, you learn a lot about the river. And then when the other side of the family are all farmers, some of them all in the tri-state area there, some of them having farmland that quite truthfully should have been wetlands, and others, farming to varying degrees of success. But it really did drive home to you the interplay of the river and the land and and conservation and farming practices, good or bad. My father used to tell my grandfather if he'd keep his darn topsoil on the farm instead of in the river, we'd all be better off. So I want to thank everyone for having me here today, and I want to especially thank the Association of State Floodplain Managers for your leadership in this arena. Right now, we're facing a very complex, changing world. There's never been a more important time for us to come together to share information and resources and build new partnerships. As flood mitigation experts, you're going to play a vital role in our nation's future. Ensuring we have the best methods and science available has always been the key to NRCS's work, and I know your work as well. And it'll be critical to ensure that we're prepared for what's ahead. How do I do this? What am I doing wrong here?
Should be the one to the right.
What do I point it at?
Point it towards them.
Ah, there we go. Okay, point it toward them. Thank you. We'll soon face challenges we've never seen before. Right now, we've got about 7 billion people on our planet, and the UN is predicting 3 billion more the next 90 years. As Assistant Chief at USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service, I can tell you we're honing in on what this means for the world's food, fuel, fiber needs, because America generally supplies that for most of our planet. In the next 40 years, American farmers are going to need to produce as much food as they have in the last 500 years to feed that growing population. Did it work? Still not doing it. There we go. We're also facing a changing physical environment. Farmers, ranchers, and whole communities are going to have to adapt to impacts from climate change and extreme weather events. Flooding and severe droughts are becoming the norm. You add to that, our natural resources are dwindling and our land base is shrinking. Over the last 30 years, we've actually lost 43 million acres of agricultural land to development. Now that's an area equal in size to the state of Washington. A lot of that paved over. And no longer able to take the water. Okay, thank you. At NRCS, these challenges inspire our work. We're helping farmers and ranchers prepare for what's ahead by offering them voluntary incentive-based conservation assistance. We're non-regulatory. Everything we do is voluntary. That assistance has proven to help their operations succeed, while at the same time preserving and protecting our natural resources. We work with farmers and landowners and forest owners to put sound conservation science and research into practice. Now, I've been asked today to talk about NRCS's programs and how they're helping, it actually worked, how they're helping to mitigate and prevent flooding. Talking about NRCS's involvement in this is not a difficult task, because helping private landowners manage weather extremes is in our DNA. NRCS was actually born, if you're not familiar with us, we were the Soil Conservation Service, and we were born in the Dust Bowl. The day the legislation passed in Congress, it's hard to imagine, but the dust cloud over Washington, D.C. actually made the skies orange, and the dust coming from the Dust Bowl states actually extended into the Atlantic Ocean 200 miles. So it gives you an idea of extreme weather events and the effect that it can have. 70 years ago, Congress established NRCS's watershed program through the Flood Control Act of 1944 and the Watershed Protection and Flood Prevention Act of 1954. And since then, we've made great strides toward ensuring that right conservation practices, treatments, and flood control measures are in place on the land. We've constructed more than 11,800 dams in 1,300 watersheds in 47 states and Puerto Rico. We've worked with project sponsors and managers, and we're ensuring these dams are functioning properly and serving communities as they should. These projects provide an estimated $2.2 billion annual benefits in reducing flooding and erosion damages, along with recreation and water supply benefits and wildlife habitat. Through the work, we're protecting communities and families and preserving livelihoods. Many of these dams are aging. They're past their design shelf life. We want to make sure they continue to provide flood control into the future. As of January 2014, we have 215 approved dam rehabilitation projects we're supporting in 26 states, and 127 of those have already been completed. Now, I just want to note that while for years we were zeroed out in appropriations and weren't getting any money for rehabbing, in FY14, Congress stepped up and put $12 million in discretionary funds to help us do this. And even better, when the new farm bill that was just signed into law took place, they've added an additional appropriation of $250 million through the farm bill, and we're going to be notifying states, because we have a backlog of projects, we're going to be notifying states later this summer funding that it's been approved for rehabilitation projects in that state. Our hope is we do the job right, we show the benefits of what we're doing, that Congress will continue to do that, and we can start working on the backlog of projects that we know exist out there that have to be done. According to the Census Bureau, during the 7-year period starting in 2000, the city of McKinney in Collin County, Texas, was the fastest growing city in the nation. That's for cities over 50,000 people. East Fork above Lavon Watershed Dam was constructed as a low hazard dam in 1957, well before this population boom. It's now classified as a high hazard dam, and we see that all over the country. Managers rehabbed the dam with a 65% NRCS cost share. This included building an additional 70-foot wide roller compacted concrete auxiliary spillway over the existing embankment and adding a second principal spillway that outlets into the RCC stilling basin. The average financial benefits come to about $161,000 a year if you look at population, property, utilities, and things like that. Not too far away from my office in Washington, D.C., in Fairfax County, Northern Virginia, the Hawk Watershed Dam is one of 6 constructed on the Hawk Creek watershed to protect homes, businesses, and infrastructure from flooding during large storms. Now, the Fairfax County and Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District partnered with us to complete a $1.7 million project using ARRA funds. And we worked together to install concrete blocks to the auxiliary spillway to prevent storm erosion along with other upgrades. Now, this work that we did with them is going to extend that dam's flood control benefits for an additional 50 years. So part of what we're doing as we're looking at this rehab is how can we push the life of these dams out into the future. This protects the people who live and work downstream, and also helps ensures that the walkways, wildlife, and open spaces nearby remain a focal point for outdoor recreation. Whoops. During extreme flooding in Georgia in 2009, some 139 NRCS assisted dams in a 23 county disaster area helped protect communities in the state, including an estimated 1,788 homes valued at $358 million and 572 road crossings valued at $57 million. Whoops, I think I jumped twice ahead here. There we go. This photo is one of the dams we established in Gwinnett County, east of Atlanta. It protects 625,000 residents that live in this community. Senator Saxby Chambers of Georgia, who's the ranking member of the Senate Appropriations Committee, said, "I applaud the efforts made by the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resource Conservation Service to make certain our watershed dams are secure after recent devastating floods in northern Georgia. Infrastructure systems like this one are in place to protect the citizens and surrounding communities from further damage caused by severe weather, and I thank USDA for taking protective measures to make sure that they are safe." We quantified some of the financial benefits of our work with local sponsors, designing floodwater retarding structures, drainage improvement channels, and land treatments to reduce flood damages in the face of major storms. For Hurricane Irene in August 2011, the watershed project sponsored by NRCS provided $39.8 million in flood control benefits. This included $8.7 million in agricultural damage that was averted and $31 million averted in other sectors. Now, these benefits were provided by 188 flood control structures in 59 watershed projects in the Irene impacted area. For Tropical Storm Lee in September 2011, we estimated these projects provided $35 to $40 million in flood control benefits. $8.3 to $11 million in agricultural damages were averted, and $26.2 to $29.1 million for other sectors. Now, I have to add that one of the reasons we went back and worked with our partners and folks to try to put an economic benefit is that part of being able to get Congress to step up and realize that that the benefits of these structures and rehabilitating them and putting them in the future is not just the high hazard dams that's a threat to human life, but also understanding the other benefits in a high flood event and the impacts that they can have. At NRCS, flood mitigation is actually synonymous not just with the structures that we've helped put in place and the practices, but also with healthy soils. Right now, we're taking it back to where it all began, back to the very first chief of NRCS, Hugh Hammond Bennett. One of the things that we've discovered is you have to look at the entire ecosystem. So soil health is one of the most important challenges we're facing right now when you talk about every drop of water that hits the land ends up eventually either going into the soil or into the creek or a river. And so that soil health is a very important point. Healthy soils are critical to mitigating the impacts from weather extremes. So healthy soils have a greater water and nutrient holding capacity. In drought years, this can ensure production continues, and in heavy rainfalls, healthy soils can actually help keep water and nutrients in the soil where they should be and avert devastating flooding downstream. Now, one of the things our scientists discovered is that an increase in organic matter is actually the best outcome. So each pound of organic matter can actually hold up to 20 pounds of water. So the organic matter acts like a sponge in the soil, holding that water in place. What this means is that every 1% increase in organic matter results in as much as 25,000 gallons of soil of additional water that an acre of ground can hold. So you think about, when you're looking at 10 acres, that's 250,000 gallons. 100 acres, you're over 2 million additional gallons of water that can be stored on the farm if the farmers have their soil doing the right thing. So looking at nutrients, the farmer gets other benefits too, because for every 1% of that increase in organic matter, that's 30 pounds more of available nitrogen per acre. So we're helping farmers save money because they're not having to pay to put nitrogen in the water, while at the same time improving their efficiency and also improving the water quality and dropping the water quantity that leaves their fields and going into the streams. There's 4 basic tenets to soil health management that we share with farmers, and it's actually pretty simple stuff. Minimal disturbance, so not plowing deep, keep soil covered, energize the soil with plant diversity, and maximize living roots. That's it. And the end result is being able to have more water stay right there on their field. One farmer we worked with is a guy named Gabe Brown in Berlin County, North Dakota. 13 inches of rain fell on his field in a 24-hour period, but afterwards there was no standing water on his low-lying field. On his neighbor's field, the land was completely inundated and underwater. The only difference between the two fields was that Gabe created a soil profile, like I just described, that allows water to infiltrate efficiently. And unlike a field that's been drained with artificial tiling, which sends water shooting out through it as it rapidly drains and goes straight into your creeks and ditches and streams, Gabe's field retains that moisture in the system. And this means that not only does it benefit the folks who live downstream of him, but it means that his plants have access to that moisture during drier periods and in wetter periods. The water stays where it should be. Less water runs off the surface. So soil health is about the long-term sustainability of agriculture in America as we see this climate change and we see drought conditions followed by heavy rain conditions. So if we're going to be feeding ourselves in the face of flooding, drought, and other weather extremes, this is about, healthy soil is about protecting American communities and livelihoods. We know that wetlands are critical to preventing flooding. Over the last 21 years, NRCS has helped more than 12,500 landowners enroll more than 2.9 million acres of wetlands into conservation, working with our partners through the Wetlands Reserve Program. During the 2008 Farm Bill, WRP saw the highest level of new enrollment in the history of the program, averaging 210,000 acres each year. So we were restoring 210,000 acres each year of wetlands in the United States, and everyone here knows how important that is to flood control. We estimate that 1 acre of our wetland reserve program stores 1 million gallons of water per year. In the flood-prone Red River Valley in Minnesota, for example, the amount of flood waters stored in the wetlands that we have put in place would cover all of Washington, D.C., up to 6 inches of water. So it gives you an idea, just in that one watershed, the impact that these can have. Thanks to our partners and conservation champions in Congress who advocated for a strong conservation title in the new Farm Bill that was just signed, we'll be continuing this great work with landowners under a new conservation easement program, among other programs. What Congress did was they took 3 of our easement programs, they put them all together under one, so it's also easier to understand. And we were able to get rid of a lot of regulations on it to make it easier for folks to be able to apply and understand. So we've created 2 different types of easements for working lands like grazing lands, pastures, or croplands, and then another program that allows farmers and ranchers to put their land into long-term conservation as we work toward growing around the world. These working land easements help ensure productive agricultural lands stay in production. For wetlands, in this new bill, there's a wetland easement component similar to what we had with the Wetland Reserve Program. Under this, we can establish 30-plus year leases to create wetlands, which will ensure that we continue to grow the wetlands that we have and the benefits they provide are protected long term. Now, this year alone, we're going to invest about $366 million into these easements. Oops. Lastly, through our landscape conservation initiatives, we're improving the health of our nation's watersheds and restoring wetlands. Through these initiatives, we're targeting our resources in the places that we see the most benefits. One of the things we're trying to get away from is random acts of conservation, where we kind of do a good thing here, a good thing here, and a good thing here. We're trying to look at the entire ecosystem and trying to work with local partners like yourself, saying what would make the most sense for you that would have the biggest benefit, and then focusing in on those areas. Now, through our Mississippi River Basin Healthy Watersheds Initiative, for example, NRCS has invested approximately $380 million from FY10 to 14 to support 123 projects covering 640 12-digit watersheds and nearly 888,000 acres of that targeted conservation I'm talking about. We've been working with our partners. We've restored 83 acres of wetlands around the upper Peoria Lake in Illinois, and these efforts are improving water quality and habitat for migrating waterfowl, while at the same time restoring the wetlands' function in flood control. So it's a win-win for the environmental community. It's a win-win for the folks who live downstream. One of the things I want to point out today, and that I really urge every single person in this room to take a look at, is one of the really exciting things in the new Farm Bill is that Congress created a new program for NRCS called the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. Under this program, we just 1 week ago announced a $400 million nationwide solicitation looking for partners to apply for projects that specifically deal with flood control, specifically deal with irrigation efficiency. You'll see if you go to our website, which is just nrcs.usda.gov, or even if you just go to the usda.gov, there'll be links there. But it will walk you through exactly what this program is. There's funding available in every single state. There's some critical conservation areas that were named that will get specific targeted funding. But I guarantee you there are groups in your state, because part of this program, the idea is to have groups like yourself partner with environmental groups who see the environmental benefit while you see the floodplains benefit. Partner with state agencies. This is one of the few programs that can actually leverage federal, not just our federal dollars, but other federal dollars and state dollars in this program. And so I really would urge you. I met earlier today, I met a gentleman who was from here in Washington State, and some of the people he said he worked with, I literally had met with yesterday talking about this exact program. And we're going to marry them up together because it's a way for you all to leverage the money you have to possibly accomplish some of the goals that you've been trying to do. So again, just go to our website. It's RCCP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. So in keeping with that, in closing, I'm just going to say we really need, if we're going to attack the problems that people in this room face and what all of us are working on up here, we really need an all hands on deck approach to tackle these challenges that we're facing now. We're here because, all of us are here because we're committed to do this important work, and we know what it means for our country's future. I'm looking forward to NRCS continuing to work together with this group and establishing new partnerships to move this mission forward. I thank you very much for the time you've given me here today, and I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you involved in this exciting new program I talked about and projects across our country. Thank you.